Hello, I'm Mark Mullins, and I'm going to do a presentation about XACML, Extensible Access Control and Markup Language, for the subject of Gestió de xarxes i serveis of the UPC, the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. First of all, I would do an introduction to the language. XACML defines a policy language, a request-response scheme, and an architecture. We will specify the first, the second, and the third part later with all the details and all that stuff. Well, XACML is used to express access control policies in a simple and flexible way. And why was it done? Well, so the motivation was to promote common terminology and interoperability between access control implementations by multiple vendors. It's just like any other protocol or any other policy that the vendors decided to do some stuff together so that there weren't mismatches between all of them. And well, it is important for the language part. It is based on XML. So if you have done something like that, it will not be difficult for you to understand it. The XACML architecture has four parts. First of all, it has the part of enforcement and the PEP, policy enforcement point. Then the part to decide, the policy decision point, okay? And well, the support, that will be the PIP, policy information point, and PRP, policy retrieval point. Well, I will later explain all of them, but this part could be a little difficult, so I will say something now. It's just the point where the access authorization policies controlled by this part are stored, typically by a database or file system. Well, and finally, the manage part, the policy administration point, okay? So, well, we have this stuff, but looking through the internet, I have found something that I think that is better and to understand, basically. So we have here one person that wants to access a document, okay, that would be here. And well, to go through it, it goes to the policy enforcement point, okay, it asks for permission. And well, this as the policy decision point if Alice can, well, Alice, it's this girl, can access this document. And well, it will look for two things. First of all, the information point, the policy information point, and the policy retrieval point. What has in this part the policy information point? So this part will have all the stuff from the environment. It will have all these attributes that it can collect. And what is the policy retrieval point? So it's the policy that that this part will follow. Okay, that this policy decision point will attend to. And who does put this policy? So there's an administrator here that goes to the policy administration point, and they store the policy in this policy retrieval point, so that later, if you want to access to the policy, you can go through it. Okay, so then again, and the policy decision point goes to looks for the information and retrieval, and then it decides whether it gives access or not. Okay, and then we are here again, and if it doesn't have access, so nothing, or if it has access, so it allows, it authorizes the person, Alice in this case, to access this document. Okay, well, so three parts, three elements of the language. It has the policy, okay, the request and response. Here, the request would be this one, the response would be this part, and the policy would be the one stored here or the one that it gives this administrator. Okay. So which parts does the policy have? Well, it has lots of them, but the most important ones that I have seen is the policy ID, the version. They are not very important, but well, the description is just a comment about this policy, about what does it do. Then the target, that it shows who is this policy directed to, and then a rule. Well, a set of rules, better. This set of rules with an unspecified target shows whether it gives access or it doesn't give access to the document or whatever. Okay, so depending on this target, it will give access or not. Well, in the rule part, there are other attributes such as attribute name, but I didn't find it important. If you want, you can look for the document for the papers, and you will find all the information very detailed. Okay, but I just wanted to do an overview of the language. Okay, then the request part. Okay, we have attributes and the name. We don't have very much things. And well, we will look for an example, so don't worry about it. And finally, a response where we would have the result and a boolean containing the decision. That the decision would be yes, access, or no, not access. Okay. So now there's an example of policy, and well, the example is about that any user with an email name in the med.example.com namespace is allowed to perform any action on any resource. So if a subject wants to access this resource, it will have to have this name med.example.com in the namespace part. Okay. So, well, as you see, it's XML, as I said, and if you can look at it, this is the part of the policy. Here we have the policy ID, and that it would be simple policy 1, the version 1.0, and then the description part that it is MEDI Corp access control policy. Not important. And then the target that is not specified, so it means that this policy would be for every kind of subject. Then the important part here, that is the rule. This is the rule ID because there can be more rules. Okay, so in this case, this is the only one. And the name is simple rule 1. And the effect is of permission. Okay. It gives permission to perform the action, an action to a resource. Here we have the description, blah blah blah, and then the target. And the important part of the target here is that it has to name match this namespace, as we said here. Okay. Well, that's all in this part. And here, example request, all the same. Here, attribute, attribute, it's subject ID. Attributes, then subject ID, and then data type, name, and here there is the BS Simpsons.com. Okay, and so what do you think? It will be able to access to the document or not? We'll see it later. well, the action here would be read. Okay, here we at the beginning we have the category, then the attribute ID, and then the attribute value. Finally, the response part, as I said, there's only response and the result, which is a boolean, and as you could imagine, the decision is not applicable. The permission is not applicable. So it won't be able to read the document. Why? Because it didn't have the namespace med.example.com. It had simpsons.com. Well, so finally, a summary about the most important words that we have. First of all, authorization. It's obvious, you have done it tons of times. It's the permission from an entity to perform some action against some resource. Then the action control role, that it says if an action is allowed or not for an entity, and is the most elementary unit of a policy. Okay. Then the subject, that is the entity requesting access. In this case, it would be Alice. And, well, the target, that is the simplified conditions for the subject, resource, and action to apply for a policy set, a policy, or a rule. As you see here, it can be the target, it can be for a rule, or it can be for a policy. Well, so also for a policy set, that would be in a set of policies. A lot of policies, some policies. Yeah. Then the resource, that is the data, service, or system component, and has one single attribute. Okay. Then the action, that defines the type of access requested on the resource. For example, here the attribute was the action was read. You see, action read. It could be write, and a lot of them. Obligation, finally, is a directive from the policy decision point to the policy enforcement point on what must be carried out before or after an access is approved. So it says what it is going to do after or before the access is approved. So thank you very much. I hope you like my presentation.